Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. I'm in American comics, I pursue eternity with super god technology. Chapter 81. The Chaoshan Research Institute was originally just a place where Wu Chen lived and specialized in researching Chaoshan technology. After that, a group of guests came. And now, this has become a representation of a force. Vision, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Hulk Banner's idea is not quite the same as Hulk are all affiliated with the Supernatural Institute. Although Rocket Raccoon and Tree Groot are pets, they are actually members of the Supernatural Research Institute, plus Star-Lord, who is also with Wu Chen for the time being. The Super God Research Institute has gathered a group of superhero, the number of which is not as many as that of Avengers, but its combat power far exceeds that of Avengers. Wu Chen was originally alone, and he did whatever he wanted. Now, the Chaoshan Institute has become a group, and Wu Chen's mind is not on the Civil War at all. So the position of the Chaoshan Institute in the Civil War is chosen by Vision and others. These subordinates of yours obviously have their own ideas. The gene system told Wu Chen in the Sea of Knowledge. Being my Wu Chen's subordinate, if I don't have any opinion, then I might as well make more robots, what's the use of them? Wu Chen does not dislike the actions of Vision and others, because although they have their own ideas, they have never violated their own intentions. Opinion, that's for sure. That's right. If they only know how to obey orders and don't know how to be flexible, then no matter how strong their combat effectiveness is, their role is limited. It will be flexible, so that it can play its due role in the face of various emergencies. The genetic system endorses Wu Chen's statement. Vision has now given the Avengers a chance to choose. As for whether they will stop and persuade the coalition forces of various countries to disperse, then see if these people can figure it out. Wu Chen looked at the projection, and saw the Avengers and the soldiers of the coalition forces of various countries who were standing in the air holding Zan Shen. Looks like Vision is really determined. Rogers said. Stark in the anti-Hulk armor already knew this. We were wrong. Instead of letting Wu Chen and the people from the Supernatural Research Institute change their minds, it's better to stop the coalition forces of various countries and tell them not to provoke these people. Natasha Romanoff said. I didn't approve of the superhero registration bill in the first place, but now it's better. Because of this thing, all of us are confronted with the Superhero Institute, and both sides have been riding a tiger. Barton said. It's not the two sides, it's only us who really ride the tiger. When Natasha Romanoff said this, he looked up at Vision in the sky, and then turned to Quicksilver and the others not far ahead, as well as the Super God robot army still maintaining a combat formation. That's right. The Chaoshan Institute has never been difficult to ride a tiger. Barton said. Vision, they just don't want to see mobs from all over the world, so they took the initiative to stop the coalition forces from various countries from launching an attack on the Supernatural Research Institute. If they really can't do anything, they will return to the Supernatural Research Institute. Then Wu Chen personally a shot, a hand rubbing the nuclear bomb. How many invading soldiers have to be turned to ashes? Natasha Romanoff had figured it out, and Barton knew it too. In fact, the Avengers present, at the moment, are aware of this. They were wrong. They thought it would be easier to change a few people than to change the minds of most people on the planet. But in fact, Wu Chen alone is enough to crush the entire Earth. It is more difficult to get Wu Chen to back down on his own initiative than to ascend to the sky. Let's admit defeat, although it will lose some face. But compared to the annihilation of the entire army, such a result is more cost-effective. Rogers has never given up in the past, but now, he has to. Because, if they persist, not only their group of Avengers will die, but also the thousands of soldiers around them, and if the situation continues to ferment, it is very likely that it will evolve into the Third World War. At that time, the number of casualties will be lost. It will be more serious than the previous two. Okay, then we'll. Stark, I'm Fury. The military has launched a large number of missiles, which are heading towards you, and there is also a nuclear bomb, which is heading for the Supernatural Institute. Just when Rogers and the others agreed and were about to concede defeat, Fury's communication came over. Nick Fury, who has been watching the whole situation from a distance, knows what is happening on the battlefield and also notices some of the actions of the military behind the scenes. These idiots who only know how to direct behind their backs, what do they want to do? Stark was in a hurry. He had already been pissed off by the so-called politicians. It doesn't matter if you come up with a superhero registration bill, you even sent an aircraft carrier fleet to surround the Superhero Research Institute. Finally, Vision and Quicksilver forced the fleet back, and they fiddled with the multinational coalition behind their backs, triggering this upgrade version of Civil War. It's better now, seeing that the Super God Research Institute has an absolute upper hand, and Captain Marvel has been hit hard by Vision's Slayer, and these politicians actually did this behind the scenes. The missiles flying towards here are okay, they should be able to deal with them with Vision's means, as long as they don't suffer too serious damage, they just need to spend a little effort to persuade them afterwards. But the Super God Research Institute. A nuclear bomb attack, no matter whether it can really hit the Super God Research Institute or not, it will bring disaster, because this kind of attack originally represents the founder of the Super God Research Institute, that is, the most powerful supernatural research institute. The provocation of Wu Chen of Shentech. Warning, a large number of missiles are heading here. The sound of the big clock rang in the minds of Vision and others. Wang Zhaozhao. Vision's complexion changed drastically, as did Quicksilver, Black Panther, and Doctor Strange. Hulk even roared up to the sky and rushed towards the surrounding soldiers. It was already this time, and he even used this method to launch an attack. Hulk's anger was completely ignited, and Vision and the others finally endured to the limit. Superhero robot obeys orders, Vision said. He cut the god in his hand, and emitted a strong light. Quicksilver, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, everyone is inferior, and they must use the strongest means. I can't bear it anymore, I don't need to bear it anymore, and I don't need to show mercy to those who are stubborn. Vision said, you turn on the final battle mode and kill all the hostile targets. At the moment when this sentence fell, the eyes of all Super God robots had turned red, and their weapon systems were all activated. Vision and Quicksilver and others have been unable to bear it anymore. They have given these Avengers and the military so many opportunities, but they not only did not change their stubbornness, they even intensified their efforts. It is absolutely unforgivable to attack the Supernatural Research Institute with a nuclear bomb. There is no longer any possibility of mediation between the Supernatural Research Institute and the countries of the Allied forces. Let everyone run away now. Stark shouted loudly, while himself, directly driving the anti-Hulk armor, flew into the sky, and flew at the fastest speed in the direction of the Super God Institute. Everyone, get out of this forest immediately. Rogers did not hesitate, and immediately began to retreat only those coalition soldiers. The other Avengers also started to act. They all knew that Vision and others were already red-eyed, and once those missiles arrived, the entire battlefield would be covered by artillery fire. Those ordinary soldiers could not withstand such strong firepower. Vision's order has been issued, and the superhero robots have launched an all-out attack. Even though the soldiers are fleeing, the attack of the superhero soldiers is faster than their escape. A minute later, the missile appeared in everyone's sight. Vision and other people used their abilities to either let the missile detonate before it came within their range, or transfer it by other means, or evade it by themselves. Therefore, no matter which side shot, it was the ordinary soldiers who were ultimately hurt. In just 2 or 3 minutes, after the missiles all landed, the entire forest had turned into a sea of fire. The thousands of soldiers who were originally gathered here are now able to survive and escape successfully, but only a few hundred. Although none of the Avengers died, a few were seriously injured. As for the Super God Research Institute, none of the 5 people were directly affected, and at most those Super God robots were blown up by more than a dozen. On the other side, Stark is flying at full speed. Although he knew the situation on the other side of the forest, he had no intention to pay attention to it. His target was the fast-flying missile ahead. The purpose of his coming here is to stop the missile and finally attack the Supernatural Research Institute. Over the years, he has been studying Wu Chen, and he struggled to find a way to suppress Wu Chen. But the more he studied Wu Chen, the more he knew how terrifying Wu Chen's strength was. When Wu Chen launched the Eternal Light spacecraft that day, he directly controlled the sunlight of the entire Earth. This trick alone, if used to deal with human beings on Earth, would be enough to make human beings suffer annihilation. Stark is this to intercept that nuclear bomb. Wu Chen was on Xandar, and he clearly saw all this and what Stark was doing. This is so strange. He had been organizing the Avengers to fight against you, but now he is suddenly so afraid of involving you in the war. If he really didn't want to go this far, he would have chosen to be with Vision. Can't they just stand together? The genetic system said. Its rational analysis could not judge Stark at the moment's behavior. Stark was originally such a complex person. Although Wu Chen was also surprised by Stark's actions, he understood. Human nature is inherently complex, and as the core character who created the Marvel movie universe's glorious history, his emotional complexity is far beyond that of ordinary people. Stark doesn't like to be in control, but he likes to be in control. He likes Banner and doesn't think Hulk is a monster. But he and Banner came up with the anti-Hulk armor, in order to prevent the Hulk from running rampant, eventually exceeding the limits of his control. For Wu Chen, his original thoughts should be equally contradictory. He doesn't like Wu Chen, because Wu Chen is the only one who makes him completely unsure of how to deal with it. Wu Chen's style makes him afraid. He wants to find a way to suppress Wu Chen, so he can put down his grievances against Winter Soldier and join forces with Rogers to fight against Vision and them. But because of his understanding of Wu Chen, he is very aware of Wu Chen's strength. He knew that once Wu Chen was really angry, the Earth, or the human beings on the Earth to be precise, would suffer a catastrophe. In character, he is self-willed and extremely egoistic, but he also has a heart that wants to protect the world. It is in this contradictory character that Stark finally reached the peak. In the movie, he snapped his fingers willingly to defeat Thanos. Here, he can put down his hostility to Wu Chen and block the nuclear bomb for him, and all of this is because the responsibility he inherited after he survived in the cave. Earth, at an altitude of less than 5,000 meters above the Supernatural Research Institute. Stark has come to the side of the missile. Boss, the missile will explode in 10 seconds, and we have no way to divert it. Said Friday after the analysis. Is there a way to end the nuclear explosion program? Stark asked. No. Can it be detonated in advance? Unless it is forcibly destroyed. Quote. But in this state, you can't get out of the scope of the explosion at all, you will be killed. Friday interrupted Stark because he already knew how dangerous the method Stark wanted to use. I am unwilling to die for helping Wu Chen's Institute of Supernatural Beings to stop the atomic bomb. Stark said, but if I get killed, I can stop Wu Chen from taking revenge on Earth's human beings, then I have no regrets. After Stark finished speaking, he directly raised his right hand, and the huge energy began to gather in his palm. Boss, it's a pleasure to serve you. Finished this last sentence on Friday. Then, Stark launched an attack on the missile, and the arc pulse wave ejected from the palm of the hand fell directly on the nuclear warhead at the forefront of the missile. The nuclear warhead that was already in the open state reacted immediately after being attacked by a strong arc pulse, which was enough to destroy the nuclear bomb on an island and exploded directly in midair. The energy wave generated by the explosion engulfed Stark in an instant, and this shocking explosion also stunned the citizens of New York City on the beach in the distance. On the edge of the ruins of the Civil War battlefield, both the people from the Super God Research Institute and the Avengers are all quiet at this moment, and they all turned their heads to look in the direction of the Super God Research Institute. This place is a long way from the Chaoshan Research Institute, but the explosion of the nuclear bomb can still be barely seen here. The most important thing is that the communication systems they used each reported to them as soon as possible what was happening over there. The nuclear bomb exploded ahead of time, and it did not land at the Supernatural Institute. Stark, who went to stop the nuclear bomb, was completely swallowed up by the explosion. This is. Stark slowly opened his eyes, but the scene in front of him was not familiar to him, and it didn't seem to be on Earth or some other normal world. This is the mirror world. Behind Stark came the voice of Ancient One. Just now, at the moment when the nuclear bomb exploded, she suddenly appeared, and then with mirror magic, she pulled Stark's body into this world. You are Ancient One. Stark has not actually seen Ancient One, but he has heard that this bald woman is the strongest of all the magicians on Earth now, and is also the master of Doctor Strange, currently Sorcerer Supreme. Yes, I am Ancient One. Ancient One nodded. I have seen everything you have just done, and I actually understand the conflicting thoughts in your heart. Ancient One said, as far as I know, you should be with Wu Chen, the one called Doctor Strange, as your student. Said Stark, who had just fought Doctor Strange. They had a fight. That's right, I do have a good relationship with Wu Chen, and Dr. Strange is my student. Ancient One replied. Then why do you still save me? Stark pressed. I have a good relationship with Wu Chen, but it doesn't mean that I approve of all his actions, and there is no need for me to follow his orders because I am not his subordinate. Ancient One said. So, are you going to choose to help us? Stark looked a little excited. I won't help you, because I can't be an enemy of Wu Chen. Ancient One said. When Stark was going to continue to question why, Ancient One raised his hand to interrupt it. The moment I chose to give Time Gem to him, Wu Chen was actually a new generation of Sorcerer Supreme, but he was good at technology rather than magic, and he was not interested in the title of Sorcerer Supreme. Therefore, it has not inherited this title. Ancient One said. As the magician of Kamar Taj, I can't be an enemy of Sorcerer Supreme, and of course not Wu Chen. Ancient One continued. Wu Chen's personality is weird, and he does things so self-righteously and completely ignoring the overall situation. Why would you give such an important thing to such a person? Stark couldn't understand. Time Gem can be said to be one of the symbols of Sorcerer Supreme, but as a former Time Gem Asgardian, why did Ancient One give Time Gem to Wu Chen so easily? Is he weird? Ancient One asked rhetorically. Actually, Wu Chen's personality is also normal. He has his own preferences and likes to do what he wants to do without restraint, which is completely what a normal person would have. Ancient One said. He clearly has such powerful technology and power, but he doesn't know how to think about the safety of the Earth. He knows that people in the world hope that the superhero with super ability can ensure that he will not do anything wrong, but he also deliberately cooperates with the world for the sake of enemy. Is a person like him still normal? Stark asked. You should have been the one who mastered the powerful technology in the first place, right? But why do you have to fight against the government and refuse to hand over the technology you have mastered? Ancient One's rhetorical question left Stark not knowing how to answer for a while. Supernatural technology is unique to Wu Chen, and he refuses to give it to anyone, which is human nature. As for what you said about the safety of the Earth, that is entirely your one-sided view. Didn't he help you during the New York War? Didn't the Ultron incident end because of him? Did he kill half of the universe? Wasn't Thanos of life killed by him? What Ancient One said, making Stark gradually silent. He didn't want to speak, but he didn't know how to talk to Ancient One, because he also realized that he was really judging Wu Chen's good or bad with his subjective consciousness. You may not think that Wu Chen is a good person, but there is no doubt that he has saved you several times. As for those things that happen on Earth, he doesn't intervene in those things between you. There is no problem originally. What superhero registration bill do you want to make? And he doesn't want to participate in it. The reason why this situation has developed is entirely because you have been actively provoking him. Don't tell me, as long as Wu Chen approves the bill, or if he lives in seclusion in another place, the act of imposing his will on others is moral kidnapping. Moral kidnapping. Stark repeated those 4 words. Because Wu Chen's strength is very strong, you think that he should become an Avenger like you, maintaining world peace and fighting alien invasion. Because Wu Chen's strength is very strong, many people think he is very dangerous. You want him to hand over take-out weapons and obey your orders. Because Wu Chen is very strong, you think he should let this ordinary person. The 3 reasons for Ancient One made Stark's face hard to look at. That's what Stark thinks. The people at Avengers think the same, and the common folks who support the superhero registration bill all think the same. Yes, this is a moral kidnapping. Wu Chen didn't take the initiative to attack any civilians. He just didn't bother to pay attention to the disputes between you ordinary people. But just because Wu Chen has technical power that surpasses all human beings, everyone imposed those ideas on Wu Chen's head. Think about it. If Stark encountered such a situation, he would definitely be angry. I see, Master Ancient One. Stark said, and he already understood what the Ancient One was going to tell him. If you can understand, that's a good thing. Ancient One said. But now, the situation has reached such a point, what else can we do? Stark asked. You launched a raid on the Supersoul Research Institute, which means that you have declared war on Wu Chen, and he will definitely fight back. Ancient One said. Could it be that we can only watch helplessly as the Third World War begins? Stark still didn't want to see such a thing happen. War is inevitable, but the number of casualties and the future development of the Earth are not fixed. If you are determined to make up for it, you will always be able to find a ray of vitality. Ancient One said. Make up, Stark thought. You're very smart, you can definitely figure this out. After Ancient One finished speaking, he pushed his right hand forward, and Stark's figure began to move backwards. You've been here long enough, go back to the real world and make up for the inevitable war. After that, the realm is completely closed, and both Ancient One and Stark have already left here to die. Stark left the mirror space, and the place where he at the moment is still the sky above the Supernatural Research Institute. He didn't feel the radiation left in the air after the nuclear explosion, but he saw Wu Chen, who was standing at the center of the nuclear explosion. Finished with the Ancient One, Wu Chen turned around and looked at Stark, who was at the moment with a dazed expression. Nuclear radiation is deadly to ordinary humans and living organisms, but it has little effect on super soldiers. Wu Chen said, the area of more than 10 kilometers here has been contaminated by nuclear radiation. I had to transfer the radiation-contaminated space to other planets, and then transfer suitable air from another planet to fill it. Quote. What Wu Chen said casually was a shock to Stark. 677. In an instant, the space within a range of 10 kilometers is directly exchanged. This ability is simply superb, not to mention that humans cannot do it, even the gods in the Norse mythology system they are familiar with may not be able to do it. You just sacrificed your life to block the nuclear bomb just now. The purpose should be to make me give up revenge on those military people who took the initiative to attack my super seminary, right? Wu Chen asked, and Stark immediately became serious when he heard what he said. Let me tell you clearly, even if you were really killed by this nuclear bomb, I will never show any mercy. Wu Chen said. He was on Xandar at the time, and he watched the nuclear bomb fly. If he wanted to, he could stop the nuclear bomb's explosion program with just one thought, and he could directly transfer Stark to other places. But Wu Chen didn't do that, because he didn't care what Stark did in the process. He only knew that those in the military took the initiative to attack his Supernatural Institute, and they used their strongest attack weapon, the nuclear bomb, as the strongest attack weapon on Earth at this stage, as soon as it came up. The previous actions were considered provocations, but this time it was a declaration of war. How could Wu Chen let go of someone who publicly declared war on himself? I understand what you mean, can I leave now? Stark asked. After talking with Ancient One, he already knew that such a situation would occur, so he had already given up the idea of stopping Wu Chen. Just leave if you want, I won't stop you, Wu Chen said. After hearing what he said, Stark immediately adjusted his direction and flew towards the battlefield where Rogers and others were. He wants to start his own plan immediately. Under the premise of being unable to stop Wu Chen, he can only stop the alliance of various countries. He wants to avoid it and have more people involved. Wu Chen turned around and returned to the Supernatural Research Institute. He stood in front of the research room and turned on the monitoring program of the big clock. Big clock, retrieve me the list of all the people who planned an attack on the Supernatural Institute behind the scenes this time, including those who operated behind the scenes, those who participated directly, and those who participated indirectly. Wu Chen said, and the big clock began to search at the first time, and a large number of lists began to appear in front of Wu Chen. In these lists, at the top of the list is Senator Ross, the former Thunder General, who hunted down Hulk for more than 10 years, directly contributed to the Superhero Registration Bill, and called the coalition forces of various countries to launch an attack on the Superhero Institute. Super God Robot, turn on the Void Engine, control all the Avengers involved in this battle, and arrest them back. Wu Chen's words came out, and on the battlefield, those superhuman robots had already begun to act. Previously, although they also showed amazing combat effectiveness when facing Captain Marvel and those human soldiers, they never used the real strongest ability, that is, the low-profile version of Wu Chen armed in their body's Void Engine. This Void Engine can't be compared with Angel's sub-biological engine, and it can't be compared with top-notch Void engines such as Galactic Force's Anti-Void and Huayi's Black Hole engine. But even the low-end version of the Void Engine can still issue a certain degree of the power of rules, such as imprisoning its ability for certain specific targets. And now, these Super God robots exert such abilities. The abilities of the Avengers cannot play any role in front of them. Except for Stark, the other 8 people are directly wiped out and all are controlled and brought it back to the Supernatural Research Institute. Vision and the others have also returned, and they have all come behind Wu Chen at the moment. Sorry, we've done our best. Vision seems a little dejected now. He has obviously tried his best to stop it, but in the end, things have developed to this stage. You don't need to apologize to me, this is your own choice, not an order I gave you. Wu Chen said. What's more, I have known from the beginning that your actions this time are doomed to fail. Why? Quicksilver asked. People's hearts are sinister, especially those politicians who rely on intrigues and tricks to go up step by step, and do everything they can to gain power and status. Wu Chen replied. In the eyes of those people, all they can see is the great benefits that supernatural technology can bring to them, and we have an original threat to their status, so, in order to achieve their goals, they will take action on the Super God Research Institute. You think that starting a war and letting those people see with their own eyes how much damage they will bring against the Supernatural Research Institute, you hope to wake them up and let them give up these thoughts. But in fact, the politicians who are behind all this, they don't care at all how many soldiers are killed or injured. Think of the various wars and conflicts that have occurred on the earth in the past. For the benefit of some people, the wars they launched, how many soldiers and innocent civilians were killed in the back, but in the end, it will be publicized to the outside world, that is to achieve justice, they will only use all kinds of high-sounding words to confuse the world. Wu Chen's remarks silenced Vision, Quicksilver and others. What they previously thought was to prevent a bigger war through a war, only after Wu Chen's analysis did they realize how wrong it was. A 100-legged worm, no matter how many legs you cut off, they can grow back, but if you shorten their heads directly, then the worm is truly dead. In the concept of super god technology, it is called beheading. Beheading, a group of people, all looking at Wu Chen. The so-called beheading is to carry out targeted strikes against the local core combat power and its core leaders before the war starts. Once such a plan is successful, the effect of the war will be far greater than if you destroy thousands of people. Army to be more useful. Wu Chen said, this beheading operation has become a routine means of combat in the super god universe. The most famous one was the beheading of the demon army and the death god Karl against the angel army in Keisha. With the status and military strength of the Angel Legion in the universe at that time, no one or force in the super god universe could pose a real threat to it. But Death God Karl and Morgana teamed up to first lead Keisha out of the Angel Nebula, and then used a strategy to separate her two most capable men. Kill it directly, we won't say whether it's dead or not, that's the result anyway. Keisha's death directly created the beginning of the Chaos God Universe melee. The Angel Legion lacked the core leader, and there were various gaps between the internal angels. External forces also rose up to attack the angel civilization, and finally the Angel Legion, which originally dominated the entire universe, suffered repeated setbacks, and even its stronghold, Mellow Heaven, had to give up. Therefore, decapitation is the most effective strategy in war. Then are you planning to behead the military? Vision already understood roughly what Wu Chen wanted to express, so he asked directly. All the personnel lists are already here, and the super god robot is ready to start at any time. Wu Chen said, while Vision and others noticed the lists displayed on the holographic projection. The vast majority of them are just ordinary soldiers. They just follow the orders of their superiors, so they participate in the action. After Dr. Strange took a closer look, he found that there were tens of thousands of people involved in this list. In addition to the politicians, officials and military dignitaries who are really involved in each country, there are also a large number of soldiers. These are the people who directly or indirectly participated in this declaration of war on the super seminary, and for them, I must punish them. At this point, Wu Chen is firm and will not change his mind because of anyone. Then are you going to kill those Avengers together? Hulk asked. He is now on Wu Chen's side, but after all, he has been born and died with the Avengers, and Banner has an excellent relationship with Stark and others. Now that Wu Chen is going to punish them, Hulk is also a little worried. Stand up. They are indirect participants and do not die. Wu Chen said. Not dead. That's fine. Hulk only heard that Wu Chen didn't plan to kill those Avengers, so he had no other opinion. Doctor Strange, Vision, Quicksilver and T'Challa, at the moment were all relieved too. In Wu Chen's list, nearly 80% of the people involved indirectly, that is to say, out of the tens of thousands of people, only a few thousand people may eventually die. Although this number is already quite large, it is still a lot less than tens of thousands of people. Since you already understand what I mean, then go ahead and execute the beheading operation as I said. Wu Chen said. This time, he still didn't plan to take action himself. But he has personally participated in it. He gave them several orders directly, and the big clock will also provide support for them. For example, a space wormhole that leads directly to the location of the target to be killed and arrested. Vision and others, at the moment were a little hesitant, but in the end they chose to respond to Wu Chen's call and began to launch a retaliatory counterattack against those people. As a result, in just one day, the world fell into panic. Those who directly organized and participated in the declaration of war on the Supernatural Institute were killed one by one. During this process, Stark has also been busy. He is shuttled around the world, he is preventing other people who were not involved in the original, and he is involved again. Is your approach too cruel? Ancient One appeared in Wu Chen's research institute, and she was sitting face to face with Wu Chen at the moment. Originally, it wasn't necessary to such an extent, but things have developed to this point. If not, there would be no one-time cure. Wu Chen said, I knew after I handed the time gem to you that I couldn't stop you from doing anything, maybe I couldn't exchange my old face for your forgiveness to some of them. Ancient One did not directly ask Wu Chen not to do anything like in the past, but hoped to reduce casualties as much as possible through intercession. Isn't Stark doing what you want to do? Also, Vision and they seem to be doing selective liquidation, not exactly according to the list I gave. Wu Chen said, you asked the big clock to hand over the detailed information of those people to Vision. They clearly know the situation of each person, so they deliberately avoided those people with pure nature. Ancient One suddenly realized that this seemed to be what Wu Chen could arrange. Killing is the most effective way to stop killing, but blind killing can also make people lost. I gave them all the lists, and I didn't ask them who to kill first, and they would naturally choose the most suitable one by themselves. Targets are killed first, and the Stark you save will inevitably save those who should be killed first. Wu Chen said that he would not allow others to provoke him, but he didn't really like killing that much. So, is this a silver lining you gave them? Ancient One asked. This chance of life was earned by Stark himself. Wu Chen replied, in this way, Stark's initiative to intercept the nuclear bomb is still somewhat useful. Ancient One said, whoever sacrifices his life to get what he wants should be respected. Wu Chen did not give Stark face, but admired the spirit of daring to sacrifice like this. Among the Avengers, he is not the only one with this spirit. Ancient One is fighting for a chance for the other Avengers to get a light sentence. Yes, they all have. Wu Chen said, but then he added another sentence. But stupid people should pay the price for their actions, not to mention, these people are planning to kidnap me with the so-called noble morality. Wu Chen gave Stark a chance, but he wouldn't give the other Avengers a chance. Stark's freedom is his own, and the other Avengers' disasters are also his own. Ancient One's pleas did not play a big role. And over time, as the number of people killed continues to compete, a new name for Wu Chen has spread. Those who were terrified by Wu Chen, called Roar Wu Chen, the ruthless death god. Death god, Star-Lord repeated the title. 3 days have passed since the beheading operation began, and Scarlet Witch and others on the Xandar planet, at the moment, have also returned to Earth. On Xandar, those people called you the Son of Eternity. Now on this Earth, people call you the God of Death. Then, does your title represent the eternity of life, or the death god? Rocket Raccoon asked half-jokingly. Since we have both, why not just call it the God of Eternity and Death? Wu Chen replied casually. These words were heard by everyone present, and they were immediately remembered in their hearts. Soon after, this title was also passed on to the universe. Most of the people who directly participated in the war against the Chaoshan Research Institute are now dead, and the rest have been arrested by the Chaoshan robot together with those who indirectly participated, but there are more than 30,000 people. What are you going to do with them? Scarlet Witch asked. She hadn't returned to Earth with Wu Chen before, but the big clock had already reported everything to her. Isn't Xandar Star being rebuilt now? When there is a shortage of manpower, let's send all these people over as coolies first. Wu Chen said. The big clock, let the cyborgs organize these people to board the Eternal Light, rule the Nova Corps and prepare them to receive. Wu Chen directly ordered that the superhuman robots who were detaining a large number of people immediately began to execute. Tens of thousands of people were stuffed into the eternal light in batches, and then they were transported to Xandar Star through a large wormhole. The Nova Corps was responsible for receiving them and began to place them on the reconstruction site of Xandar Star. These tens of thousands of people must have been killed in the past, and they never thought that the first time they flew out of the Earth in the future, they would be sent to an alien planet to work as coolies. Having said that, on the Earth's side, Wu Chen and the others are still dealing with the issue of this civil war. The dead are dead, and the arrested have been sent for processing. But on Earth, there are still 7 billion human beings, and they are now in a state of panic. The superhero registration bill was originally in the interest of most people. After all, the existence of a group of uncontrollable superhero will make these people uneasy. And now, Wu Chen not only did not join the Superhero Registration Act, but also caused a war because of this act. In the end, thousands of people died, and tens of thousands of people were captured and exiled in the universe, which has made people all over the world realize how terrifying Wu Chen is. In everyone's heart, almost everyone hopes that someone can clean up Wu Chen, but no one dares to express this idea, and no one dares to directly oppose Wu Chen. Because all of them understand that if they are really hostile to Wu Chen, they are courting death. Since everyone is afraid of us now, it's better to take the opportunity to take the entire Earth into my pocket and make this my private domain. Wu Chen said, and his thoughts instantly made everyone in the entire institute stunned. If he wants to take the whole Earth into his pocket, that means he wants to rule the whole world. What, you all think this idea of mine is too crazy? Wu Chen turned around and looked at the superhero who were following him. Sir, you have to know that the rule that relies on violence will not last long, and in history, there has never been a precedent for success in this way. Vision said. Who said no? Wu Chen countered. Could it be that there are really people in history who can achieve rule by relying on violence? Quicksilver doesn't quite believe that either. Yes, Qin Shi Huang is. Wu Chen said. Qin Shi Huang, the one who created the unification of China and created the great Qin dynasty. But didn't his Qin empire perish in just 14 years? The place where Dr. Strange practiced magic was relatively close to the Central Plains, and Ancient One was a person who liked the Chinese civilization very much, so he still knew something about Qin Shi Huang. The reason why Da Qin perished was because the first emperor was dead. If he didn't die, who would dare to oppose him? Wu Chen said. Qin Shi Huang, although he was the first emperor of the 6th generation of Yulai to create the world, but Qin Shi Huang's original domineering and achievements are still unique in history. He was alive, and the remnants of the 6 countries bowed their heads. Now, compared to the first emperor, I have a greater advantage. It is not difficult to realize this rule. Wu Chen said. He is a god who has supernatural technology and has an infinite lifespan. The big clock makes Wu Chen know everything about the entire Earth. Not to mention, in Wu Chen's hands, there are all 6 infinite gems. As long as he wants, he can control everything at the touch of a finger. Quote. Vision and others are still hesitant. After all, the idea of ruling the world is a bit surprising. There's nothing wrong with it, so it's decided. Wu Chen ignored what they were thinking. The big clock issued a notice to all countries on Earth, ordering them to disband all regular armies, and the rest of the fighters to maintain law and order temporarily stay in their original positions and wait for the new one, but all heads of state must come to the Supernatural Institute to meet the king within 3 days. Quote. Wu Chen said, and these words, what he meant, immediately passed through the big clock and began to spread to the whole Earth. Those civilians who were being suppressed by fear, Wang Nuohao, those soldiers who are hesitating all day long, and those politicians who are thinking about ghosts, all received the announcement from the big clock, issued by Wu Chen. For a time, the global friar. It was even more shocking than when they knew before that those who organized the attack on the Supernatural Research Institute were all killed. Government officials from those countries convened urgently, and the heads of state also rushed to discuss countermeasures with each other. However, with the beheading action launched by the Supersoul Research Institute ahead of them, none of them dared to be a standout. As a result, despite the extreme reluctance of these people, they still disbanded the armies of various countries, and the heads of state also set off one after another, rushing towards the Transcendent Institute. Definitely, there are also some countries that ignored Wu Chen's announcement, such as those small countries divided by warlords, such as the beautiful country that claims to be the strongest on Earth. 3 days later, the heads of state of most of the countries on Earth have already come here, and even the heads of the beautiful countries that did not intend to pay attention to Wu Chen's announcement at the beginning have also been dojos. He was directly grabbed by Stark and brought here. In order to prevent Wu Chen from finding a reason to fight again, he broke into the White House alone, relying on his artificial intelligence system and armored battle suit. He was stunned to capture the president who was hiding inside and was guarded by heavy troops, and then brought him with him to this venue. Although the way of appearing is a bit special, at least, people have arrived. Facing the numerous super god robots in the Super God Research Institute, I looked at Vision and others standing on the podium, as well as Wu Chen, who was standing in the air and looked down on the world. No matter what the purpose of these heads of state came here before, at the moment all quieted down, and everyone quietly waited for Wu Chen to make the final verdict, waiting for their arrangements for the countries of the world. But in the end, Wu Chen didn't say anything at all. There are no long speeches, no coercion and other means. He just stood in the air for an hour, and after looking at the heads of state who had been arrogant, most of them bowed their heads in the end, he turned and left. It was not until more than 3 hours later that a message indicated by Wu Chen and conveyed by Vision was made public. Everyone who is present today is my direct subordinate from today. You need to report to me the domestic situation every year at the Supersoul Research Institute. Every 6 months, the Supersoul Research Institute will send commissioners to inspect various countries. Remember, from today onwards, Wu Chen's words are the decrees of the gods, and no one can disobey. The orders and instructions conveyed to all countries by the Supersoul Research Institute must be fulfilled by all countries unconditionally. The content is only 2 simple sentences, but the meaning to be expressed is also clear. Except for Wu Chen's previous order to dismantle the regular armies of all countries, the Supersoul Institute does not intend to make changes to other systems in these countries. But there is no doubt that they will all be Wu Chen's subordinates in the future. Wu Chen, as the co-lord of the world, what he said is the imperial edict, and his instructions will no one be able to disobey. And the best proof is that the small countries composed of warlords who were unwilling to disband their troops suffered a devastating blow when the heads of state just left the island where the Supernatural Institute is located. Those warlords were all defeated, their heads of state and core government officials were all killed, and the entire country disappeared completely, leaving only a group of civilians with no nationality and no management. You wiped out the governments and armies of those small countries, so what will happen to the civilians who are left? If there is no one to manage, they will be completely messed up. Vision came to Wu Chen and asked. The super god robot is still stationed in place, who dares to mess around? Wu Chen asked back. Vision was stunned for a moment, then realized that this was indeed his own worry. People in those areas, under the so-called heads of small countries and the military, are just targets of exploitation, and now no one is pressing on their heads, which is actually a great thing for them. T'Challa also came to the research room of the Supernatural Research Institute, and his current complexion has changed from the melancholy of the previous period. T'Challa, you? Vision looked at Black Panther suspiciously. He didn't understand for a while what happened to Black Panther. I went back to Africa for a walk, and I also studied it carefully with my father, Wong, and found that after Wu Chen achieved global unification, not only did the whole world not become chaotic, but it became more peaceful than ever before. T'Challa said, "That's inevitable, because all those who have guns in their hands have become the targets of the Supernatural Research Institute, and those who don't have guns, how much disputes can they cause?" Doctor Strange opened the portal and came directly here, and he also just passed Kamar Taj, and made a certain degree of observation of the world. If you say that, Wu Chen, you are doing a good deed, a great deed. Quicksilver sighed. May the world be peaceful. Many people have said this sentence, but it has never been truly realized in thousands of years, even in the more than 1 million years since the birth of mankind. But now, because of Wu Chen, all this actually happened. Good thing. I'm not going to do good things. Wu Chen said. It's just that this planet will be mine in the future, and I will naturally manage my own country. What Wu Chen is doing now is managing his own country. He is a monarch, and the monarch's responsibility should be to make his country prosperous and peaceful. Government agencies of various countries are retained because I have not been able to find such a large number of people to manage 7 billion people in the world in a short period of time. As for the military, their original role was to defend the family and the country, but now that they have me, you, and superhuman robots, their existence will directly lose their meaning. Although Wu Chen's words were still as domineering, after Vision and the others heard them, they didn't have any doubts and worries. Instead, they felt that this was a very meaningful thing. The rule established by violence should be hated by everyone, but after the violence, it is suppressed with a heavy code, but it can in turn form an extremely peaceful situation. You have achieved the beautiful wish of world peace in the most direct way. Ancient One also came, and Stark was still by her side. After all the other Avengers were captured by Wu Chen and sent to Xandar to work as a coolie, he is the only Avenger who can still stay on Earth. He was originally the one who had the greatest opinion on Wu Chen, but now Wu Chen has been recognized. This is only the initial stage. This so-called peace is only because everyone has fear of me, so they dare not take action. Therefore, in order to truly realize my real power over the entire Earth, I must have further steps. Wu Chen said. He has now regarded himself as a monarch, and the monarch's thoughts are self-contained. What measures, if any, we can help? Stark said, and by us, he meant the Avengers, and he was trying to get Wu Chen to put them back. I'm going to carry out a major replacement of the managers of the existing countries. All managers will eventually be screened uniformly by the big clock. In the end, those who meet the conditions will stay, and those who do not meet will be replaced directly. So, what I need is a big clock, and your presence means nothing to me. Wu Chen is clearly telling Stark that his little abacus is useless. To rule the world, many people have had the idea, but no one has ever realized it. But now, Wu Chen has done it. The Earth, all countries, all regions and ethnic groups, are all under the control of Wu Chen alone. The chaotic Earth, originally composed of more than 200 countries and regions, has now become Wu Chen's private domain. The most important thing is to rule this planet. No one else can do it anyway, but Wu Chen can easily control it. The key to all of this lies in the super god technology controlled by Wu Chen. The big clock, its ability is said to monitor a small Earth. It can monitor the entire galaxy as well. The micro wormhole handling technology allows Wu Chen to open the space wormhole to go to any place anytime, anywhere, and cooperate with the big clock. Wu Chen can control any corner of the Earth in real time. Then there are the super god robots. These robots modified and built by super god technology, although they are not as powerful as real super soldiers, but on this Earth, they are almost invincible existences. Wu Chen doesn't have enough energy to pay attention to the trivial matters on Earth, so he can directly let these superhuman robots deal with it, as long as the big clock provides them with corresponding solutions, and then open the wormhole to send the robot to the past. In the beginning, people only had fear and resentment towards the co-lord who controls everything. But as time went by, people suddenly discovered that the Earth, which was in chaos and strife, turned out to be a better place than it used to be. Without the existence of the army, I thought there would be no sense of security, but the global crime rate has dropped to a very low level, just because those criminals have just acted, and they will be arrested by the sudden appearance of supernatural robots. They thought that if the Earth was dominated, they would lose their freedom, but their lives were the same as before, but there were fewer unreasonable restraints and injustices. Many poverty and hardships originally caused by various reasons such as country, ethnicity, religion, etc. are also rapidly shrinking. Even those who were originally affected by natural conditions and had a difficult life received the help of the Supersion Research Institute. Under the almost omnipotent ability of Supersion technology, everything was solved. Droughts will not occur, floods will not occur, and even earthquakes and typhoons will be avoided in advance due to precise warnings. There are no natural disasters, no man-made disasters, the entire planet, except for the necessary social pressure, economic, humanistic, etc. Anyway, I don't know how to describe it. All other catastrophic events have disappeared. In such a world, who would feel uneasy and panic? However, in just 1 year, the situation of the entire Earth has undergone a shocking reversal. Originally, everyone was afraid of Wu Chen. Now, almost everyone only admires and worships Wu Chen. Wu Chen has become the real ruler of this planet, a god revered by everyone. How can I say this? Stark at the moment has come to Xandar, and he has found the Avengers who are working here as coolies. We thought we were doing the right thing, but in the end we became the villains. We did a good job of hard work this year. Rogers sighed helplessly. No loss. It's okay to lose to death. Natasha Romanoff came over, with Barton, Peter, and Sam by her side. The 9 Avengers, except for Stark, have all become coolies, and now on the construction site here are 5 of them. The few of us were nothing, but Peter was still a child, and now he was supposed to be studying at school, and he ended up doing coolies with us here. Barton said, and Peter, at the moment is no longer a little fresh meat, and he has more robustness and simplicity unique to migrant workers. He was tanned and looked more like a man. I'm fine, but I haven't seen Aunt May for a whole year, and I don't know if she's doing well now. Peter thought of this with some worry and remorse on his face. I came this time with permission from Wu Chen, and all of you can use the big clock to make a call with your family. Stark looked at Peter, remorse even more inside. Peter was originally just a street thief catching thieves and robbers, but he was dragged into the Avengers team and went to fight Vision and the others. Now, he was sent here to work as a coolie. That was a great time of youth, and it was all wasted. Since you've already looked for Wu Chen, why don't you let him put us back? At least, it's good to let Peter go back first. Barton himself has children, and seeing Peter suffer with them here at such a young age is actually very uncomfortable for him. Oh, Wu Chen made the Earth better, that's a fact, but don't think that he will be a bad guy because of this. Stark smiled helplessly. In the past year, he has gotten to know Wu Chen better. Wu Chen manages the Earth in an orderly and prosperous manner, all because he regards himself as the master of the Earth. The Earth is his home, and he is naturally willing to work hard to manage his own home. But the Avengers, those are the people who have offended him. The more than 30,000 coolies here are all people who once fought against him. For these people, it would be fine if he didn't kill him directly. Penalties are waived, that is simply impossible. Perhaps, there is a way you can try. Vision, who came with Stark this time, is the head of the Supernatural Research Institute. Any solution? Stark asked directly, and everyone else looked at Vision expectantly. At the time, Mr. Stark used his life to block the nuclear bomb from attacking the Supernatural Research Institute, so you were pardoned and did not accept the same punishment as them. If you are willing to exchange yourself, you can naturally let Peter return to Earth. Before Peter could say anything, Stark agreed directly. Mr. Stark, how do you? Peter, you are still young, you have an infinite future, and you should not waste your time here. Stark interrupts Peter. This year, the last thing he will do is to let Peter get involved in this matter, and now he has finally found a way to make up for it. How could he miss it? But what about Stark Industries if you stay? Peter asked. With Pepper around, she can take care of Stark Industries. Stark replied. Then what are you going to tell Pepper? Rogers asked. I'll make it clear to her myself later. Stark has decided that he will send Peter back to Earth to die no matter what. Peter couldn't beat Stark, so he finally returned to Earth, and the first stop was the Institute of Supernatural Beings where Wu Chen was. Peter came to the research room and finally saw the Avengers who have been discussing for a whole year, Wu Chen. Stark traded his freedom for yours, he's such a caring man. Wu Chen said with emotion that he has a certain degree of curiosity about Stark, just like he also has a certain degree of liking for Spider-Man. In all superhero movies, Wu Chen first came into contact with Spider-Man. Before the rise of popular movie IPs such as X-Men, Batman, Avengers, etc., it was the first to become famous all over the world. A Spider-Man movie, and then around Spider-Man, 3 different versions were shot in a row. Therefore, as a transmigrator, as the first superhero that Wu Chen encountered before transmigration, he actually likes the role of Spider-Man somewhat. However, the previous Wu Chen didn't have the time to pay attention to Spider-Man, and this Peter Parker was only one of the 3 versions. I heard what they said about you, that you are a very difficult person to get along with, is that so? Peter asked. That's right, it's not wrong. Wu Chen said that he really doesn't like to communicate with people in this world, at least with those who have the same quirks or have ghosts. Then, is there any way for you to let Stark and the others go? Peter asked again. When people do something wrong, they should be punished. Stark is punished for you so you can come back. If you want him back, you have to go back and replace him, but he just doesn't want you to be punished there, so you have to if you exchange with you, if you go to exchange with him again, he will definitely not agree. Wu Chen said. Then finally, can you tell me how long it will take for them to come back? Peter knew that it would be useless to ask him any more. When Xandar completes its reconstruction, their sentences will be fulfilled. Wu Chen did not think of other punishments for those people for the time being, nor was he interested in wasting his time on it. Then it will take at least more than a year if you say so. Peter has worked there for a year, and he knows what the reconstruction works there. Now that you know, let's go back. Wu Chen casually dismissed Spider-Man, and he has more important things to do next. Then he had finally found the book of Waishandi that he was going to contact when he took the time gem from Ancient One. In other words, Wu Chen finally found out how to enter that space to find the book of Emperor Waishan. Ancient One and Doctor Strange uploaded all the magical knowledge they had into the big clock, and the big clock has now completed the classification, sorting and specific application of all magical knowledge points. And what the big clock can master, Wu Chen can also master it through sharing and learning. After Spider-Man left, Wu Chen handed over the work of the Supernatural Institute to Scarlet Witch to manage, and then went directly to Kamar Taj. Although, as long as you have mastered the relevant magic, you can enter the parallel world at any time, but going to Kamar Taj, who has the most magical abilities on Earth, for Wu Chen, who uses magic for the first time, will have a certain degree of difficulty. Enhancement is that. Inside Kamar Taj, Ancient One and Doctor Strange were also slightly taken aback when they saw Wu Chen, who suddenly visited. Although they and Wu Chen have known each other for a long time, this is the first time Wu Chen has come to Kamar Taj. The Earth has rarely been calm for more than a year, and you haven't done anything special for more than a year. Now that you are here, I am afraid you have already decided to find the book of Emperor Waishan, right? Ancient One is still very smart. The moment she saw Wu Chen, she had already guessed something. Thanos is dead and infinite gems are already in my hands. At the moment is when I am the most leisurely. Naturally, it is time to search for the Book of Navashan. Wu Chen said, you can think about it clearly. Once the door between the parallel world and us is opened, it will enter a multi-universe era, and I am afraid that there will be many crises that we can't predict. Ancient One reminded. Hasn't the crisis caused by the multi-universe already happened? Wu Chen asked back, and the crisis he was talking about was naturally the Doctor Strange of the Dark Book and the Illuminati invasion event. There is still a difference between passive acceptance and active opening. Ancient One said, blindly thinking about waiting and defending as a kind of passive from the beginning, and I, Wu Chen, never liked passive. Wu Chen said, in this case, then you can start, Strange, and I will stay here until you return. As Ancient One spoke, Doctor Strange, who was beside her, was already ready. Wu Chen nodded slightly, then walked to the middle of the indoor hall of Kamar Taj, and began to summon the magic formula to open the parallel universe. The opening of the parallel universe has attracted huge cosmic energy, and unprecedented shocks will come. He may cast a more powerful Wu Chen, but it is also possible that endless disasters will invade the real world. Big Clock, are you ready? Wu Chen asked. We have analyzed many times that I appear as a companion plug-in in this world for you, so even if you move to another parallel universe, I will automatically follow and can help you in the same way. The Big Clock replied. What about backup energy? The existence of infinite gems can provide me with energy, and the backup fixed star energy is also very sufficient. In addition, no matter which world I enter, the fixed star energy and dark energy can be used as the energy for my operation. So good. Wu Chen nodded with satisfaction. As long as there is no accident with the Big Clock, Wu Chen is not afraid, because he is sure that no matter in any parallel world of the Marvel movie universe, he can stand on the top of the world with the Big Clock. Gone. After speaking, Wu Chen stepped directly into the magic circle. The powerful magical energy immediately changed, and Wu Chen's figure disappeared in place. He finally took the first step towards the multi-universe. And this also indicates that Wu Chen will enter another stage in this Marvel world. No one will know what this next stage will be like, but Wu Chen is ready for any changes. This is a special space where everything around is chaotic, where different energies meet each other, and then transform into a more pure and single character. Is this the so-called eternal magic energy? Wu Chen's eye of insight, carefully observing everything around him, he felt the strangeness here. In the super god universe, all gods are only studying a single infinite universe. The concept of parallel universes has always been ignored and rarely mentioned. Now, in my database, there are finally a more detailed record on this matter. The sound of the big clock came into Wu Chen's sea of consciousness, and when Wu Chen heard it, he naturally felt that there was a sense of security. When the big clock is on, Wu Chen is at his peak, which is more important than anything else. In the super god universe, the strongest ability is the void, but the most enormous energy is dark energy, because almost all super god technologies are applied with dark energy, and in all the known universes of the super god universe, dark energy exists everywhere, and mastering dark energy means that can be unimpeded in the universe. But in this Marvel movie universe, it seems that the whole universe is implemented by so-called divine power and magic, and the cosmic energy is originally extremely complex. Only here, hundreds of rivers converge, and eventually become Wang Yanghai. The big clock said, and when Wu Chen listened to what it said, his eyes always fell on the book of Nahui Shandi. This is the key to transforming all energy into pure magical energy. Wu Chen said, according to my memory, the book of Emperor Weishan has countless pages. It contains the most powerful known white magic and defensive magic in the world. The spells it records can never be used for offense, but only for defense. The most important thing is it can originally be used to deflect magic. Wu Chen's memory may not be completely accurate, but it is of great reference value. After all, there are many similarities between the Marvel comic universe and the movie universe. By comparing the actual performance of the comics with the movies, you can draw a rough estimate. In conclusion, in the past, Wu Chen made basic judgments on all those superhero, supervillain, and supermatter in this way, and then made a detailed analysis by the big clock. It is better to say that the Book of Emperor Weishan is a book that records super powerful magic, and it is better to say that it is a magic weapon, with which a magician can be used to exert a stronger power. Wu Chen came to the Book of Emperor Weishan, and at the same time, he turned to look at a gate behind him. It looks like some old friends can't sit still, Wu Chen said, and at the same time, the door he was looking at had already opened. Later, in several other directions, there were actually several doors that opened, and those who came out were actually the same person. Doctor Strange. There are only a few people here. So, there are not many people who are really willing to contact the Dark God Book like you and are controlled by the Dark God Book. Wu Chen said. He could see that these were Doctor Stranges who had been in contact with the Dark God Book, and their minds were eroded by the Dark God Book to varying degrees. In it, Wu Chen recognized the one who once fought with him. After the last time, I thought you wouldn't dare to appear in front of me again, but I didn't expect you to come here. Wu Chen said, last time I had myself, and this time, I have us. Doctor Strange number 1, number 0 of Doctor Strange in the original universe, this one who appeared twice as number 1, and the rest are numbered casually, anyway, they are all passers-by. Said. Furthermore, the infinite gems you control cannot play their due role in this space, and your strength will definitely not be as strong as you were back then, so why don't I dare to fight you? Doctor Strange number 1, he at the moment has a lot of confidence, just because, this time, he has these same people who are exactly like him. If that's the case, why don't you hurry up, what are you waiting for? Wu Chen asked. The Doctor Stranges didn't answer, but put their eyes on Wu Chen's side, the book of Weishandi that had been shining brightly. Oh, yes, you are magicians who have practiced the dark book of God. The book of Weishan Emperor is a nemesis for you. You are afraid that if you get too close, your magic will be affected by it, right? Wu Chen said. However, you can also destroy it directly. With the magic of the Dark Book of God, it shouldn't be difficult to destroy the Book of Emperor Weishan when it is not opened, right? Or, although you have been eroded by the Dark Book of Gods, your reason is still not fully informed, and you still have a trace of reverence for this Book of Weishan Emperor, so until now, you have never thought about destroying it. Quote. At the moment of insight, Wu Chen can gain insight into people's hearts. It saw the thoughts in the hearts of these Doctor Stranges, and also felt their dark and contradictory hearts. You said that his ability depends on the energy of the universe he is in, now it seems that this is not the case. Doctor Strange too said, it's already at this time, don't be a mother-in-law, let's take action and get rid of this guy who is interfering with the multi-universe timeline. Doctor Strange 3 said, have you all agreed on your ideas? Doctor Strange number 1 asked. In fact, he had already endured to the limit. If it hadn't been for the same thoughts, it wouldn't have appeared here. Since we've already arrived here, we must destroy the Book of Wyshan Emperor and kill this guy who disturbed the multi-universe and parallel timelines. All Doctor Strange ideas have been unified. Then, let's go. Doctor Strange number 1 took the lead, summoned red flames with magic, and burned towards the location of Wu Chen and the Book of Wyshan Emperor. The other Doctor Stranges also shot, either using flames or using swords. In short, their purpose is only one, to kill Wu Chen and destroy the Book of Wyshandi. Wu Chen stood on the spot. Behind him, a pair of white wings stretched out, dark alloy armor had been summoned on his body, and the Spear of Eternity had appeared in his hand. With a wave of his left hand in front of him, an invisible barrier appeared around him, wrapping Wu Chen himself and the Book of Emperor Wyshan in it. All the attacks from the Doctor Stranges were blocked by this barrier. Wu Chen scooped it up, took the Book of Wyshandi in his hand, and did not read it, but directly held it in his hand, and only controlled the Spear of Eternity with one hand. You, insignificant. Doctor Strange, in the Marvel movie universe, is one of the most powerful superheroes, and is on the same level as Captain Marvel, Thor and Scarlet Witch. Moreover, at this stage, Doctor Strange is actually stronger than the other three superheroes. After all, Captain Marvel and Thor will fall into a very passive situation when facing the wonderful move of magic. Scarlet Witch, who is also a magician, has not been in contact with the Dark Book, and its magical potential has not been fully developed, so the application is not as good as the Doctor Strange who has the blessing of the Dark Book. However, even if it is such a powerful Doctor Strange, even if several such Doctor Stranges at the moment appear at once, in Wu Chen's eyes, they are nothing but insignificant existences. At this moment, Wu Chen, holding the Book of Emperor Wyshan in his left hand and the Spear of Eternity in his right hand, stood proudly in the same place, and as far as his eyes could see, it was the Doctor Strange's. Eternity means infinity, and infinity is all-encompassing. The so-called multi-universe is nothing but countless projections of the same universe. All seemingly different people are actually one person, and no matter how many changes one person has, it cannot surpass infinity, and it cannot be compared to eternity. Wu Chen said in his mouth that for more than a year, he stayed calmly in the Chaoshan Institute, but it was not without the slightest change. He began to think about the truth about the universe, he began to explore the true meaning of the universe like a god, and in the process of exploration and thinking, he also had some small insights. Although it is not complete, and although he has not been able to truly understand the true meaning of the universe, his vision is no longer comparable to that of mere mortals. Locking. In just 2 words, a burst of invisible energy suddenly appeared in this space, and the bodies of those Doctor Stranges, as if they were bound, could no longer move. Clear. Another 2 words, the various substances in Doctor Strange's bodies and the energy they possess are being explored and analyzed by Wu Chen in some unpredictable way. Definition. Wu Chen said. At the same time, the sound of the big clock appeared in the space. Start the void program, redefine the locked target, change the substance, transform the organic substance, and the form after the redefinition is complete. The last word fell, and the bodies of those Doctor Stranges changed into sculptures at the same time, and they changed from human bodies to stone statues. What Wu Chen used at the moment was the power of the void. Now Wu Chen has combined the anti-void of the power of the galaxy and the void studied by Death God Karl, and began to combine them into one, and put them into his body to create a stronger void controller. Wu Chen's divine body has not been further upgraded to the 4th generation divine body or the so-called divine body. But his built-in super gene engine has undergone earth-shaking changes. Under the premise of the simultaneous progress of thought and practice, Wu Chen has truly stepped into the realm that belongs to God. Don't try to escape. In this space, even in the state of a soul, it is impossible to escape my vision. Wu Chen said, and behind the sculpture that Doctor Strange One's body turned into, the soul of Doctor Strange One, who was planning to escape, couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Soul astral, interstellar projection, I understand all of your means, and what you plan to do at the moment is under my control, so why waste your efforts? As Wu Chen spoke, a burst of energy filled the entire space, and he locked onto Doctor Strange number 1, as well as all other Doctor Strange's souls. Wu Chen, do you really want to kill them all? The Doctor Stranges all appeared, and they were all left with only their soul forms, but the dark energy given to them by the Dark Book, at the moment was constantly flashing, and the blood-red light began to fill the entire space. If you don't cut the roots, the spring breeze will blow. If you hadn't escaped that day, how could I meet you again today? Wu Chen said, since there is no choice, let's go all out and let the fish die. Doctor Strange number 1 said. All the other Doctor Stranges, almost at the same time as him, began to form the same magic circle. Sacrifice our souls, pray to the God of Darkness, let the door of this multi-universe open forever, and let endless invasions come to the MCU. All the Doctor Stranges spoke in unison, the souls of each of them combined with the power endowed by the Dark God Book, and finally entangled with each other, forming a new and larger magic circle. This array is not for Wu Chen, but for this special multi-universe space. At the moment when the magic circle was formed, all the doors connected to the various multi-universes were all opened, and those universes in the MCU Marvel movie universe where Wu Chen originally lived were forcibly linked together. This situation, Wu Chen looked at the scene in front of him and was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that these Doctor Stranges who were influenced by the Dark Book of God would end up doing such a thing. They would rather give up their souls and bodies and completely sacrifice to the Dark Book of God, so as to open the way to all universes. Gateway to the MCU universe. The opening of the channel means that people or things from other parallel universes may break into the MCU universe from time to time in the future, and these people or things are likely to bring huge amounts of disaster to the MCU. The big clock, Wu Chen asked. This is caused by Doctor Strange's soul resonating with the Dark Book, and we cannot prevent this from happening unless we destroy all dark books in the multi-universe. The big clock replied, the multi-universe is endless, and it's impossible for us to find them locally and destroy them. Wu Chen is very clear how the multi-universe exists. In your memory database, there is a record of Scarlet Witch destroying all the multi-universe dark books in one go. Wong Nuo good, said the big clock. No, Wanda is my person now. How can I watch her fall into the Dark God Book, and finally destroy all the Dark God Books at the cost of self-sacrifice? Wu Chen rejected Big Clock's offer. Although he knew that Wanda could destroy all the Dark Books, he would not let Wanda take risks at will. Then, we can only allow this multi-universe gap to exist, and then be ready to welcome the multi-universe invasion at any time. Said the big clock. That's no big deal, anyway, I will have time to deal with these so-called intruders in the future. Wu Chen didn't care much, because he had already seen the invasion of the so-called multi-universe and parallel universes. Then, I will find out all the existing dimensional gaps as soon as possible, and establish a complete early warning and defense system as soon as possible. The big clock replied, and this matter seemed to be so determined. When Wu Chen came back from the multi-universe interval, both Doctor Strange and Ancient One had serious and nervous expressions. They have already sensed the cracks that exist between the multi-universes, and in particular, they have sensed that the energy of the Dark God Book is running wild. In other multi-universes, the Book of Darkness is made into a book, but in the MCU universe, there is the real original Book of Darkness, which is engraved in the stone temple on the top of the mountain and guarded by dark monsters. What the hell happened? Why are the cracks in the world so obvious? Ancient One asked. Her gaze stopped for a moment on the Book of Emperor Weishan on Wu Chen's left hand. There is a group of Doctor Stranges in the parallel universe who were polluted by the Dark God Book. They sacrificed their souls and used the Dark God Book as an introduction to open the gap linking all parallel universes. Wu Chen said, Doctor Strange looked bewildered, although he knew that the other multi-universe Doctor Strange and him were one person, but not the same individual, but I heard that a bunch of people who looked exactly like him were sacrificed collectively. The impact is still quite large. Take the Book of Darkness as a reference, then if you want to repair these cracks in the universe, you have to destroy the Book of Darkness first. After all, Ancient One is still the master of magic for hundreds of years, and immediately guessed the key point. Yes, no one can repair the cracks in the world that have been opened unless they can destroy all the dark books. Wu Chen confirmed Ancient One's conjecture. Then what are you going to do? It's not easy to find all the dark books in the entire multi-universe. Ancient One said, Since there is no way to do it for a while, then set up a defense system first. The big clock will monitor all the cracks in the world at any time. If there are people from other universes, we will find out as soon as possible. Wu Chen said, the universe is so big, can you and your big clock really be able to monitor all the cracks in the world? Doctor Strange asked, do you still doubt my ability? Wu Chen asked back, and when Doctor Strange heard what he said, he couldn't help but froze for a moment and then closed his mouth in embarrassment. This is Wu Chen. Since he appeared in this world, he has done so many earth-shattering things. What he said he would do, he has never been able to do it. You Kamar Taj are the magical center of this world, the place where the magical energy of the dark god Safbuk is strongest is here, and if someone invades, it will most likely be with you. Wu Chen said, the meaning of Kamar Taj's existence is to block the erosion of the real world from the dark dimension. He has enough experience in this area, and there should be no problem. Ancient One said, well, since that's the case, I'll leave it to you to take care of it for the time being. I have to go back first. When Wu Chen spoke, he put away the Spear of Eternity and the dark alloy armor on his body. Spreading his wings, he flew high into the sky, heading all the way towards the Supernatural Research Institute. During this period, he wandered the great rivers and mountains, watching this picturesque world. Among so many planets in the universe, it is rare to see a beautiful environment like the Earth. As the owner of this planet, Wu Chen has not been serious enough to appreciate the scenery of the Earth. Returning to the Supernatural Research Institute, in the research room, he saw several subordinates of the Supernatural Research Institute who had rushed back because of his summons. Includes Vision, Quicksilver, Rocket Raccoon, Tree Groot, and Star-Lord. The multi-universe world rift has appeared, so the invading people may continue, and most likely in large numbers. With Wu Chen's strength, it is possible to deal with these people, but it will take a lot of Wu Chen's energy, so it is better to use these people under your own hands to do everything yourself. They all have strong strength, and they also have some weapons and equipment given by Wu Chen. Under this premise, it should be possible to fight against those people who are also from the multi-universe in the Marvel Universe. The big clock has already told you all about the situation. Now you can think about it. What should you do? Wu Chen asked. The world rift connecting the infinite multi-universe, it should not only exist on the Earth, right? Rocket Raccoon asked. Yes, although according to my speculation, most of them will appear in the interior of the Earth, but it is still possible that some will appear in the universe. Wu Chen replied. If this is the case, we can't simply stay on the Earth. I am afraid we have to spread out. Some stay on the Earth, and then the other part goes to the universe. Xing Lord said, he has long wanted to go on an adventure in the universe, but in the past, because he was afraid that Wu Chen would not agree, he never brought it up. Now that he has such an opportunity, he naturally hopes that he can lead the team to the universe. I'm afraid our manpower is not enough. After all, we only have 5 people here, and our opponents are unknown in number. We have to prepare more manpower to be foolproof. Vision said, I see what you mean, you want to get those guys from Avengers back and work with you, right? Wu Chen looked at Vision. The people of the Avengers are all superheroes, and they already have strong fighting power. It would be a waste to let them go to Xandar to be Masons. It would be better for them to turn their backs on their guild and come back to help us deal with the problems from the world. Wouldn't it be better for intruders from the cracks? Vision said, he still cares about She-Stark, and he still has feelings for other Avengers, and he really doesn't want them to continue to work as coolies in Xandar. I also felt that it was appropriate to have them back. Quicksilver said, the big guy has to turn back into a human from time to time, and he's such a reckless guy that it's not easy to have him on call at all times. Scott is now going back to help his husband and girlfriend, ready to go to his mother-in-law. T'Challa and Strange have their own business to do, and the 5 of us are really short-staffed. Rocket Raccoon also supports Vision's proposal. In fact, everyone present thought so. Wu Chen saw what they were thinking, and now he really needs human help to keep an eye on the cracks in the world. After all, the superhuman robot can be used as a task force in battle, but it cannot flexibly respond to various emergencies, and the role of humans is still greater. Then you go to them. If they are willing to submit to the Supernatural Research Institute, so that I can drive them from now on, let them come back to assist you. Wu Chen said. Vision was overjoyed to see that Wu Chen finally agreed, and immediately pulled Quicksilver on, and the two headed towards Xandar Star. If you want to realize the exploration of the cracks in the world in the entire universe, there is no way to achieve it with the supernatural technology you have at this stage, said the big clock. At the moment, Wu Chen is located on the 3rd floor of the Supernatural Research Institute. That top secret area that no one other than Wu Chen can see, let alone enter. I can't do it with the supernatural technology I have, so what about the technology in your database? Wu Chen asked. Opening the Void Age, only by mastering the real Void technology, you can do everything you want to do, said the big clock. The Void Age. I have combined the anti-void of the galactic force and the ability of the Void engine to create the Void controller. Haven't I used its ability today? Isn't this not a real step into the Void? Wu Chen asked. The Void controller is indeed the product of Void technology, and in terms of level, it can be regarded as one of Void technology, so the existence of the upper layers. The big clock replied. Since that's the case, what exactly is the Void Age and the real Void technology you're talking about right now? Wu Chen asked. After death, God Karl proposed the concept of Void more than 10,000 years ago. All gods are studying the subject of Void, and among them, the person who has studied the deepest and created the most advanced Void technology, that is Death God Karl, said the big clock. In Death God Karl's research, he found that the power of the Void can achieve omnipotence, and he has created many powerful Void technologies by relying on his own research on the Void. Twisting and mastering of spatial instability, practical application of Void matter, transfer deposit of super gene sequences. Besides, the space principal also has his unique achievements in the Void field. His hourglass made with Void technology breaks the boundaries of time and space, explores the past and calculates the future. The big clock is introducing in detail the Void technology that has been realized in the Super God universe. Then, you want me to open the Void Age, which technology is the breakthrough? Wu Chen asked. Void matter is the key to opening the Void Age, said the big clock. If that's the case, shouldn't I try to drive Fixed Star to bomb the black hole? Wu Chen knew how Void matter was created, but he also knew better what conditions were needed to truly accomplish this step. The Fixed Star is driven by Blazing Sun technology and controlled by a top god like Death God Karl himself, so that accurate bombing can be achieved, and the current Wu Chen's strength is obviously not able to reach the level of Death God Karl. We can start to upgrade the 4th generation Divine Body or Sacred Body first, which can strengthen your own strength. At the same time, the analysis results of Soul Gem have come out, and we may be able to use the power of infinite gems to achieve our goals, said the big clock. You mean, you've finished analyzing Soul Gem's condition? Wu Chen asked. He had waited for more than a year for this news, and finally the result came out. Through analysis, the energy form of Soul Gem, in addition to the special ability given by the concept originally, Soul Gem and other gems have the same energy mechanism, but only one point of latitude. Soul Gem has a built-in special space. Through the entrance of this space, we can go to a special universe connected to it. The big clock replied. Is that so? Then Gamora, who was sacrificed to Soul Gem by Thanos earlier, at the moment should be trapped in that space. Wu Chen thought of Gamora, the daughter of Thanos who disappeared forever because of her sacrifice. Although that space belongs to a special universe, the scale of that universe is not large. Using the data of a large clock to detectability has completely explored the entire space. Gamora is indeed trapped in that universe, said the big clock. If that's the case, then take me to that cosmic space for a walk, and let me have a look at that so-called idyllic and beautiful little universe. Wu Chen said. That Soul Gem has been summoned to his hand at this moment. Of the 6 infinite gems, 5 of them were carried by Wu Chen for a long time, and this one had been kept in the laboratory on the 2nd floor of the Supernatural Research Institute because of the need for analysis. Now, it's finally in Wu Chen's hands again. The orange light flickered. Wu Chen's figure disappeared in place. He had entered a whole new world through this Soul Gem, a completely independent small universe different from all other multi-universes. Standing in the space, Wu Chen's eyes turned white, and he quickly read all the information in this universe through the big clock. Soon, he locates the position of Gamora, the one who was adopted by Thanos, but at the same time his parents were killed by Thanos, and Gamora himself was sacrificed by Thanos. Her condition at the moment is very calm, she is not sad because of her past life, nor helpless because she is regarded as the most precious person by Thanos. She just stayed in this world quietly, watching the sunrise and sunset every day, feeling the harmony and beauty of the whole nature. It seems that this is really a good place to cultivate one's temperament and cultivate one's temperament. Wu Chen sighed. He had appeared in front of Gamora. Gamora was originally in a state of indifference, but when she suddenly saw someone appear, she was completely stunned. She then became excited, ecstatic, then suspicious, then wary. A person's emotional changes are completely determined by the strangeness of what happens. For Gamora, who had been living alone here for over a year, seeing someone else appear was originally a shock. "Who are you? How are you here?" 33. Gamora asked, but soon, she seemed to remember something. "Are you the one who appeared on Earth, Wu Chen who wanted to snatch infinite gems from Thanos?" Gamora looked at Wu Chen suspiciously. She wanted to know if her judgment was correct. "You're right, I'm Wu Chen," Wu Chen said, retracting his wings and slowly falling in front of Gamora. "How did you get here? Are you also swallowed up by the soul gem? Isn't that Thanos' desire to fulfill his desire to destroy ordinary life in the universe?" Gamora worried. "I came in on my own, not swallowed by soul gem," Wu Chen said. "Furthermore, Thanos is dead, and he, along with his legion, allies, is the past of the entire universe," Wu Chen said, and Gamora, who heard his words, showed a happy expression. But then, there was a little sadness and emotion. This is probably the last expression of her kindness to Thanos for raising him up. Chapter 91. From today onwards, this small universe is completely privately owned by me. You should leave here with me. Wu Chen said that he values Soul Gem, and the fundamental reason why he let the big clock analyze Soul Gem is for this small world. "You mean, can you take me away?" Gamora looked at Wu Chen in surprise. Since she came to this world, she never thought that she could go out, and it was because of this that she appeared in the state of tranquility before. "Since I can come in, I can go out naturally. Now I am the owner of Soul Gem, and even the consciousness hidden in Soul Gem cannot stop me from doing anything," Wu Chen said, and at the moment, at the exit of this small universe, that Soul Gem glowed orange. Obviously, it was expressing its dissatisfaction with what Wu Chen said. But the 6 infinite gems are all in Wu Chen's hands, and the big clock has been holding on to the consciousness in the Soul Gem that has been holding. Even if it is dissatisfied, it can't do anything. "Let's go," Wu Chen said. With a slight wave of his right hand, Gamora was wrapped in energy and sent into space. Shuttle in this small universe, and then pass through the door of the world opened by Soul Gem, and leave this small universe. And Wu Chen, who still stayed here, started his next plan. "Big clock, I want to build a new super god empire here," Wu Chen said. Wu Chen has fantasized about occupying one world alone many times, and similar scenes have happened in many fantasy novels. Now, Wu Chen really has all this. How could he waste this self-contained little universe in vain? "Super god empire, are you planning to create a new main god civilization here?" asked the big clock. "Yes, I want to create a true superhuman civilization, in which people may rarely walk in the outside world, but they will continue to grow and develop, and everything they grow and develop as will be a part of who I am to be able to activate them when I need them to do things for me that really matter," Wu Chen said. "Well, if you really have decided, then let's start. I will use the data backed up in the database, combined with the ability of Time Gem and Space Gem, to help you complete the construction of this supernatural civilization." Big Clock agreed, and there didn't seem to be too many ideas and suggestions. Why are you so straightforward this time?" Wu Chen remembered the Big Clock's reaction when he planned to use the Big Clock's database to replicate Angel. "In the past, you were just based on desire, intending to create a perfect body to serve your desire. And now, what you want to create is a real civilization. Although the growth of this civilization has more simulation elements, but all the lives born in this civilization are real. In the end, you didn't decide to do this for purely physical desires. In terms of the morality of Kamigawa civilization, there is nothing against it." The Big Clock answered. "The so-called Kamigawa civilization morality is actually quite loose, and perhaps it is because of this that there are such main gods as Morgana, Death God Karl and Di Honkun." "Oh, I understand now." Wu Chen is no longer entangled, and the Big Clock has not issued a moral initiative. Next, I plan to use the development process of Kamigawa civilization as a template to start the creation of this super god civilization. Please forgive me, the big clock was born after the Kamigawa civilization entered the age of creating gods, so the records before the age of creating gods in the Kamigawa civilization were all simulated and completed based on some historical research and speculation. Completely reliable authenticity. The big clock interrupted Wu Chen's words. If the Kamigawa civilization cannot be used, what about the angel civilization? Wu Chen asked. Kamigawa civilization and angel civilization began to come into contact when the Merlot heavenly court was born, but tens of thousands of years before that, the big clock had actually detected the existence of their civilization, so they have detailed information on the development of their civilization, of the record. The big clock replied, well, let's take the development trajectory of angel civilization as a template and start our journey of creation. Wu Chen said, but you have to remember that the ultimate purpose of the simulation is to let me understand the start and development of the entire supernatural civilization, and I will finally create a real super soldier for my use based on the simulation results. Wu Chen reminded, although this simulation is based on reality, the simulation is only a simulation after all. Even if it is a simulation carried out on the conditions of creating civilization, most of the ordinary people among those people will only dissipate into nothingness in the end. Clear, the big clock replied. Well, let's get started. Wu Chen said. After that, he and the big clock began, and the real civilization was created. The initial stage of the creation of this civilization is easy to solve. On the premise that the small universe provides a real living environment, Wu Chen only needs to evolve a specific species, that is, to create the most primitive human beings, and then civilization begins to appear. And everything after the creation of civilization is the real key. Wu Chen can't intervene directly, he can only guide their civilization development simply by intervening in some specific events and specific characters together with the big clock as a god. This guiding process is long. Even if Wu Chen and the big clock are guided by manipulating events and constantly jumping, it still takes a lot of time and experience. Because, even with the calculation ability of the big clock, it is impossible to quickly and accurately see the development of this civilization and make predictions. Therefore, the big clock needs to constantly adjust the time scale to carefully observe the evolution of the entire civilization. From the original primitive man to the Stone Age, the ratio was 10,000 to 1. From the Stone Age to the Bronze Age, it was 1,000,000 to 1. From the Bronze Age to the Hot Weapon Age, it was 10,000 to 1. The pace of development and evolution of civilization is going faster and faster, and the interval between each era will constantly shrink. After entering the era of thermal weapons, the progress of human civilization is even more leapfrog. Taking the Earth as an example, from the era of thermal weapons to the pre-nuclear era, it is only a short period of 100 or 200 years. Although there will be a long process from the pre-nuclear era to the space-level interstellar age, and most civilizations will stagnate in the space age. But once civilization has entered the pre-nuclear era, the development of human beings cannot be deduced by pure time, but must be determined by thought. Therefore, going into the pre-nuclear era and observing, will want more time and energy. But no matter what, the project that Wu Chen started at the moment is an extremely huge and complicated one. He has to wait for this civilization to finally take shape, and it will take at least hundreds of thousands of years in the time of this civilization itself. Even returning to the real universe will take several years to complete. It is also necessary to study the history of civilization, just like Zhe Shaolun used Chenkin to simulate, but the protagonist here is directly figurative simulation. Wu Chen has no time to stay in the small world to observe carefully. He can only observe through the big clock, and then check the situation regularly every day. It was also at this time that Wu Chen discovered the drawbacks of being alone. In the process of development and research of supersion technology, a lot of time and energy need to be invested. When there is only one person, no matter how hard it is, it cannot be perfected. Therefore, it is necessary to have the emergence of civilization and to have helpers. In the super god universe, even the most weak death god Karl has snow as his helper and a gluttonous civilization that looks weak. Therefore, Wu Chen also needs helpers in the future development. In particular, Wu Chen has to deal with potential threats in addition to his own research. Back in the research institute, back to the research room hall on the first floor, he saw the helpers he needed. Some of the original subordinates of the Chaoshan Institute, as well as Avengers who were retrieved by Vision and Quicksilver, and Gamora who had just been sent by Wu Chen. You can come back because Vision and Quicksilver have been begging you, but you should know what to do next. Wu Chen looked at the Avengers. Being a coolie is not difficult for these superheroes, but the feeling of being suppressed by others makes them look embarrassed. It is still difficult for us to understand some of your practices, but in any case, you have made the Earth truly peaceful, which we recognize, and now that we are asked to contribute to the protection of the universe, we are naturally willing. Rogers said, as long as you are willing, I don't care if you understand it or not, and I don't care if you recognize it or not. Wu Chen said that he never needed them to understand himself, let alone get their approval. Vision, Quicksilver, the two of you will be the captains of the Earth Squad in the future, and you two are responsible for everything that happens inside the Earth. Wu Chen looked at Vision and Quicksilver, then Rocket and Star-Lord. The two of you are in charge of the universe. As for the manpower, you can find it yourself. The big clock will also give you a few suitable candidates. You can try to contact them. When Wu Chen finished speaking, a list and detailed information had been uploaded to the communication device in Rocket's hands. If I want to go to the universe, can I go with me? Gamora asked. She had been in the small world for too long, and now she wanted to go back to the universe, by the way, to find her missing sister. I want to go to the universe too. Captain Marvel stepped forward. That day, when Vision was going to fight, she was cut off by Vision with Zan Shen. But even so, she still has a strong fighting power with one arm, and she can still return to the universe to fight. I have been fighting around in the universe for so many years, and I am familiar with many planets in the universe. If I go together, I will definitely be able to help them. Captain Marvel said, well, very good, it seems that your temperament has been improved to a certain extent after breaking your arm, and you are no longer the arrogant look you used to be. Wu Chen nodded and said, in the past, I was a little too confident in my own strength. The reason why I lost to Vision was not only because he had the weapon you gave him, but also because I underestimated the enemy. Captain Marvel has deeply introspected. She has thought about the situation of the battle that day, as well as her own way and attitude when dealing with those things in the past. People, as expected, can only find their own shortcomings and deficiencies best when they are at a low point. That's right. The god-killing martial arts is very strong, but it's just a weapon after all. Its function is only to allow Vision to break through your defense. The reason you really lose is because of your contempt for Vision. Launch an attack, find your vulnerability easily, and hit it off. Wu Chen said, if you know how to reflect, you can make progress, and you should be able to help Star-Lord and the others in the future. It's just that I, Wu Chen's subordinates, can't have disabled people. Wu Chen said, patted Captain Marvel's shoulder with his right hand, and a burst of strong energy immediately gathered in his palm, and then passed into Captain Marvel's shoulder. After the energy entered Captain Marvel's body, it quickly stimulated the changes in his body's genes. The arm, which had been completely severed, was quickly reborn in a wonderful way. The appearance of this scene of rebirth from a broken arm surprised everyone. If the lizard men who traveled from the parallel universe that day could see today's scene, it is estimated that he would cry with excitement. After all, what he didn't hesitate to become a monster to study could already be applied to such a degree in Wu Chen's hands. The reborn arm is exactly the same as Captain Marvel's original arm, just like Captain Marvel's hand has never been broken. No matter how many times I've seen it, I still feel incredible when I see Wu Chen using his ability. Rocket Raccoon said, and Gamora, who was standing not far from it, was in a daze and shock at the moment. Wu Chen is the god of eternity and death, life and death are in his control, he can control the power of the entire universe at will, he is omnipotent. Star-Lord said, no wonder, Thanos and the others would lose to Wu Chen, I can understand now. Gamora recovered, thinking that the Thanos who dominated the universe had lost to such an omnipotent person, she felt that everything was logical. Wait, your data shows that you are Thanos' adopted daughter. Rocket turned around. He had just seen the information about Gamora given to him by the big clock, and then realized it. It's true that he raised me, but my biological parents were killed by him. Gamora replied, well then, you are welcome to join. Rocket reaches out and invites Gamora. Okay, Captain, it's a pleasure to fight with you in the future. Gamora reached out and shook Rocket Raccoon's hand. Well, shouldn't the captain be me? After all, no matter what I say, I'm still a god. Star-Lord loves to perform today. It should be said that he likes to perform in front of Gamora. Your captain is Gamora. Wu Chen's voice suddenly came, and both Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon were confused. Then, I'm very happy to be your captain. Gamora smiled, for the first time since she was sacrificed by Thanos to take the Soul Gem. As for Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon, both at the moment are a bit depressing. But what Wu Chen said, they dared not have any doubts. Soon, the members of the Supernatural Institute were divided into two parts. One part was led by Gamora to space, and while patrolling the cracks in the world, he was looking for new members to expand his team. The other part, which remains on Earth, is led by Vision and incorporates the members of the Avengers. Because they had been away from the Earth for more than a year, these superheroes had each dispersed for a short period of time before returning to the Supernatural Research Institute, monitoring the situation all over the Earth through the research room on the first floor. Previously, the Avengers only learned about the current state of Earth from Stark. Now, they have seen the Earth with their own eyes, and through the global monitoring system in the research room, they have also seen the living conditions of every corner of the whole Earth. The gap between the rich and the poor still exists, and there are still basic social conflicts. But almost all crimes will not happen, and those extraordinary natural disasters will no longer threaten human life. The whole Earth seems to have become a Garden of Eden, an ideal land where everyone can live and work in peace and contentment. We desperately wanted a world in which the God of eternity and death, who in our eyes was a dictator, made it happen at the snap of our fingers. Natasha Romanoff sighed with emotion that at the moment, they were the former agents, the later superhero, and the current Superhero Institute working men. At the moment, Wu Chen was full of admiration. There is an old saying in the East, if you plant a flower with your heart, the flower will not bloom, but if you plant a willow and willow to make a shade, Wu Chen, is this true? Barton said, it's not that he is unintentional. With the big clock, his powerful strength and those super god robots with unparalleled execution, it is easy for him to rule a planet, but he was not interested in the Earth before, and our global alliance with the Superhero Registration Act gave Wu Chen this reason to rule the Earth. Stark stepped forward. He watched the Earth from the initial chaos to the present situation with his own eyes. He clearly knew the reason for Wu Chen's success. Whether intentional or unintentional, the results are good now. The Earth today is what we all hope to see, and what we need to do next is not to let those external factors destroy the interior of the Earth. A rare piece. Quote. Rogers said, that's right, the key now is the aliens, the traversers from the parallel universes, and the invaders that might emerge from the universe. Vision came in from the door. He and Quicksilver had just returned from Kamar-Taj, and they went there together to talk to Doctor Strange and learn some details about magic. Although we already have 9 people here, it is very likely that there will be a powerful and numerous force or organization like the Illuminati that has appeared before in the cracks in the world that have opened up. Therefore, we still have to find more powerful helpers. Just do it. Quicksilver said, with Wu Chen and the super god robot, do we need to worry about combat power? Natasha Romanoff clearly remembers the scene when those super god robots turned on the Void Engine and captured them all at once. Wu Chen's attention is mostly on his research, and if it weren't for some really huge amounts of threats on Earth, he wouldn't take action. Quicksilver replied, there are also supernatural robots. They are now scattered all over the world and are the key to maintaining the normal operation of the entire Earth. There are many left behind in the Supernatural Research Institute or are on standby. Without Wu Chen's authorization and orders, nor do superheroes get into battle easily. Vision said, oh, now I know why you two have to ask Wu Chen to let us come back. Without us, we can't do so many things just by the two of you, even if your legs are broken. Stark said helplessly. He still couldn't figure out why Wu Chen suddenly made an exception. Stark, you don't have to make jokes like this. Vision said seriously. Oh, sorry, I'm used to it. Stark immediately returned to normal. Next, I need to explain the current situation in detail to you. Vision comes to the forefront of the holographic diffraction pattern. According to the information provided by the big clock, we have determined that there are currently 3 world cracks on the Earth. In fact, the world cracks are not fixed. At present, these three may disappear at any time, but in other places, and there may be new ones at any time. Therefore, we must always pay attention to the situation in the Earth, and combine with the global monitoring system of the big clock to keep abreast of the situation. In addition, the people who come across the cracks in the parallel universe are not necessarily all bad people. For those ordinary people or those with no malicious super ability, we will find a way to send them back. Only those who attempt to destroy will be given to us. Kill. When Vision said this, he looked back at Stark. This is why I begged Wu Chen to allow you to come back and help. Otherwise, with Wu Chen's habit, he would choose the most direct solution, which is to kill all of them. Vision added, with Wu Chen's usual style, he is indeed very likely to kill all of them. As Rogers said, Stark at the moment chose silence. Wu Chen will only protect what belongs to him, or what is beneficial to him, and any potential threat, he will directly eliminate it. This has been confirmed many times. So, is this guy a good guy or a bad guy? Winter Soldier's voice suddenly came, and at the position where he was standing, on the virtual projection in front of him, a red figure appeared. It was a guy in a red leather jacket with two knives on his back, sitting on a highway counting passing cars. The target is a parallel universe wearer, Wong Nuohao, whose real name is Wade Winston Wilson, titled Deadpool, and belongs to Mutant. Its ability is infinite regeneration and super self-healing ability, which is difficult to kill with conventional weapons. The big clock directly showed that person's identity information. Deadpool, the first guy to appear, doesn't look like an ordinary person. Natasha Romanoff looked at the message and couldn't help but worry. Whether he is an ordinary person or not, let's go and contact him first to confirm whether he is good or bad, and then we will consider how to deal with him. Rogers is an actionist. After saying this, he turned around and prepared to go to the scene. Winter Soldier and Sam both chose to go with him. As for the others, they still stayed in the research room, and they had to pay attention to whether there were walkers in other places, and they all believed that only one Deadpool was not enough to pose a threat to Rogers and the three of them. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.